Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a tool that might just completely change how you deal with information. It's called NotebookLM.
Okay, so you know the feeling, right? You're working on a big project, a report, or just trying to learn something new, and suddenly you're just drowning in a sea of PDFs, browser tabs, and random notes. It's just information overload.
But what if you could actually talk to all that stuff? I mean, literally ask your documents questions and have them talk back to you. Sounds a little bit like sci-fi, I know, but that's the core idea we're digging into today.
And this is the tool that actually makes it happen, NotebookLM. Think of it as your own personal AI research assistant. And here's the crucial part. It's not about searching the whole internet. Nope, it's about helping you make sense of the stuff you give it.
So this is your personal research assistant. Let's see how it works. Okay, so how do you actually go from that messy pile of digital files to a clean, organized space where you can, think? Well, it all breaks down into a few really simple steps.
First things first, you create a notebook. And the really important thing to get here is that each notebook is like its own little self-contained world. So the research you're doing for a history paper will never ever get mixed up with your notes for a big work proposal. It is all about focus.
And you can see here, you can have totally separate notebooks for every single project. You could have one for analyzing market trends, another one for diving deep into Shakespeare. Each one becomes its own little private universe of information.
Step 2, add your sources. So now that you've got your workspace, it's time to feed your notebook with knowledge. This is where you bring in all your raw material, basically building the brain for your project.
And what can you add? Well, the variety here is honestly fantastic. We're talking everything from your standard PDFs and Google Docs to web links and even YouTube URLs and audio files. Seriously, so whether it's a super dense academic paper, a client presentation, or a lecture you recorded, you can pull it all into one spot. So this is what your workspace looks like. It's a really simple 3-panel design. Over on the left, you've got your sources, that's all your input. Right in the middle is the chat, where you have the conversation. And then on the right, you've got the studio, which is where you create stuff. It's a really clean, logical flow, right? Input, understanding, and then creation.
Okay, step 3, chat with your data. You got your sources loaded up. This is where the magic happens.
And this is the absolute key. When you ask a question, NotebookLM does not go out and search the web. Instead, it gives you answers that are grounded only in the sources you provided. This is so important because it keeps everything hyper-relevant and stops the AI from just, making stuff up. And how do you know you can trust it? Well, check this out. For pretty much any question or instruction you give NotebookLM, the response is going to come back with one or more citations. This turns a simple answer into an answer with actual verifiable proof.
You see those little numbers in the text? Each one is a direct link right back to your source material. You can hover over it to get a quick peek at the original quote, or just click it, and boom, you're taken to the exact passage in the original document. It makes fact-checking and seeing the original context totally effortless.
All right, step 4, generate amazing outputs. So you've gathered your research, you've had a conversation with it, you understand it. The final step is to actually do something with all those insights. And that's where we turn our attention to that third panel on the right.
And here it is, the studio. Think of this as your creative workshop. It's just packed with tools to help you take all that research and transform it into brand new, useful formats. For instance, you can create a whole bunch of different reports. We're talking things like an FAQ, a study guide, a timeline, or a briefing document. And the best part? You can generate these automatically with just a click. I mean, what an incredible time saver.
And if you're a visual thinker like me, the mind map feature is, well, it's a total game changer. It can take a really dense, complex topic and just lay it out for you visually, showing you exactly how all the different ideas connect. It's a fantastic way to see the whole landscape of your topic in just one glance.
And it's not just about text and visuals either. You can even generate an audio overview. This is basically like a mini podcast where a couple of AI hosts discuss the key themes from your documents. So you can literally listen to your research while you're on the go.
Real-world superpowers. So how are people using this? The features are obviously cool, but what does this actually look like in the real world? How does this give people superpowers in their work or even their hobbies? So who is this for? Well, the applications are just incredibly broad. You've got students creating practice questions for their exams, professionals are using it to develop entire training materials, writers are using it to organize complex stories and keep track of characters, and researchers, They're synthesizing hundreds of documents in a tiny fraction of the time it used to take.
And I love this one. It's such a creative example. Dungeon masters, for games like D&D, are actually using it to manage their sessions. They can upload a recording, and NotebookLM will extract key events, create lists of plot points, and even generate a recap for the next game. It just goes to show you how ridiculously flexible this tool is.
Okay, so let's compare the free versus the pro versions for a second. If you're ready to jump in, the free version is honestly super generous. You get 100 notebooks to start with. But for those of you who are going to be using this for some heavy-duty research or big professional projects, there is a pro version that really expands those limits on how many sources you can have and how many of those cool audio or video outputs you can make.
So really, it all comes down to this: going from that cluttered pile of files to clear, actionable insights. NotebookLM is like your personal AI partner for thinking. It's not just about finding information anymore. It's about truly understanding it on a completely different level. Look, your sources have something to say. All that information you've gathered has a story hidden inside it, full of connections and insights just waiting to be discovered. So the real question is, are you ready to listen?